Hey, hello. My name is Daryus Vaughan, and I'm going to read a story for Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a holiday celebrated between January 1st and January 26th. The name Kwanzaa comes from the Swahili for first fruits. Each of the 7 days, a candle is lit in honor of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Those principles are unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, and faith. The goal is to encourage people of African descent to embrace African culture and celebrate their past. This story is entitled Farmer Mybrow and the Fairies. This is a West African tale that would be told on the 3rd day at the lighting of the 3rd candle, as it is a story about responsibility and trustworthiness. Farmer Mybrow was one day looking about for a suitable piece of land to convert into a field. He wished to grow corn and yams. He discovered a fine spot close to a great forest, which later was the home of some fairies. He set to work at once to prepare the field. Having sharpened his great knife, he began to cut down the bushes. No sooner had he touched one than he heard a voice say, "Who is there, cutting down the bushes?" Mybrow was too much astonished to answer. The question was repeated. This time, the farmer realized that it must be one of the fairies, and so replied, "I am Mybrow, come to prepare a field." Fortunately for him, the fairies were in great good humor. He heard one say, "Let us all help Farmer Mybrow to cut down the bushes." The rest agreed. To Mybrow's great delight, the bushes were all rapidly cut down with very little trouble on his part. He returned home exceedingly well pleased with his day's work, having resolved to keep the field a secret even from his wife. Early in January, when it was time to burn the dry bush, he set off to his field one afternoon with the means of making a fire. Hoping to have the fairy's assistance once more, he intentionally struck the trunk of a tree as he passed. Immediately came the question, "Who is there, striking the stumps?" He promptly replied, "I am Mybrow, come to burn down the bush." Accordingly, the dried bushes were all burned down, and the field left clear in less time than it takes to tell it. Next day, the same thing happened. Mybrow came to chop up the stumps for firewood and clear the field for digging. In a very short time, his faggots and firewood were piled ready while the field was bare. So it went on. The field was divided into 2 parts. One was for maize and one for yams. In all the preparations, digging, sowing, planting, the fairies gave great assistance. Still, the farmer had managed to keep the whereabouts of his field a secret from his wife and neighbors. The soil having been so carefully prepared, the crops promised exceedingly well. Mybrow visited them from time to time and congratulated himself on the splendid harvest he would have. One day, while maize and yams were still in their green and milky state, Mybrow's wife came to him. She wished to know where his field lay, that she might go and fetch some of the firewood from it. At first, he refused to tell her. Being very persistent, however, she finally succeeded in obtaining the information, but on one condition. She must not answer any question that should be asked her. This she readily promised and set off for the field. When she arrived there, she was utterly amazed at the wealth of the corn and yam. She had never seen such magnificent crops. The maize looked most tempting, being still in the milky state. So she plucked an ear. While doing so, she heard a voice say, "Who is there, breaking the corn?" "Who dares ask me such a question?" she replied angrily, quite forgetting her husband's command. Going to the field of yams, she plucked one of them also. "Who is there, picking the yams?" came the question again. "It is I, my brow's wife. This is my husband's field, and I have the right to pick." Out came the fairies. "Let us all help my brow's wife to pluck her corn and yams," said they. Before the frightened woman could say a word, the fairies had all set to work with a will, and the corn and yams lay useless on the ground. Being all green and unripe, the harvest was now utterly spoiled. The farmer's wife wept bitterly, but to no purpose. She returned slowly home, not knowing what to say to her husband about such a terrible catastrophe. She decided to keep silence about the matter. Accordingly, next day, the poor man set off gleefully to his field to see how his fine crops were going on. His anger and dismay may be imagined when he saw his field a complete ruin. All his work and foresight had been absolutely ruined through his wife's forgetfulness of her promise.